Welcome back to the Are You Being Real show. We have got the one and only Tatiana DeMaria in the house today.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You are a rock star. You're literally a rock star.
You are far too kind.
It's cool to have you here in my home in front of this rock wall right here.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I love your wall. It's brilliant, mate.
Well, it was amazing getting to see you perform at your release party over the weekend at Whiskey A Go Go here on Sunset in LA, and just to see you in your element and shining. And you've got an awesome story. I'm really in awe of your journey and just how freely you express. You've lived a really cool life. You had a band, Tats, and had hits with them. You've traveled the globe with all sorts of huge acts. Alice Cooper, NoFX, The Offspring. That was one of my favorite bands from like 7th grade. So that's cool to see.
Oh my
that.
God, me too as well. I was a teenager too, and I was actually still in high school, and I remember getting that show, and I was like, shit, awesome. And so we went and played it, and it was wild. It was wild.
Well, I want to dive in here. One of my favorite things to do on the show is to ask the guest just tell a cool, super story that like really lets us see you.
Well, I suppose the first thing that comes to mind is sort of my journey over the last few years. I think I wrote my first record with my band Tat when I was in high school. And, you know, as a kid, everything's brand new and we're inspired and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to put this on a record and I'm going to say this and it's all really cool and everything's new and every concept was new to me and I felt it was going to be new to the world. And, you know, when you're young, everything does feel very new and very fresh. And so I had a lot of luck and we toured and the singles did well and everything was going great. And then things picked up in the US. So we came out to the US and we toured the US and we sort of ended up doing 3 years in Europe, 3 years in the US. And by the end of it, we had played 1,000 shows on the same album, which was a lot. It's more than you'd usually do on an album. And by the end of it, I remember getting on stage and I had a sensation which I wasn't used to feeling, but in the last year I found it hard to want to get on stage. It's not something I really talked about, but I was feeling just that rote and repetition and I was losing connection with what I was doing. I got on stage and when I was on stage I gave it my all and I definitely gave our fans every night what I had in me, but at the same time I felt like we all do as creatives, the need to create something new, the need to get on stage and feel the excitement for myself, not sort of play the same things. And what I'd also started to realize, which was a process, was that I'd been on the road since I was in high school and I was finishing these tours, but I had grown and yet my music was still what I had created then. So I came off tour and I hit burnout pretty hard. And it wasn't something I'd experienced before. I tend to be a bit of a freight train and just go, go, go. And I like to do a lot of things and I love what I do. So it's really easy to just keep pushing and keep working. But we had a tour in the US with Social Distortion and we had a tour in Japan planned and we'd never canceled a tour before. And I got to a point where I just wasn't in a very good headspace. I'd really hit a brick wall and I'd been through a lot of different things in life in general. You know, as a teenager and as a young teenager, I'd been uprooted and moved around a bit, but I'd dealt with a lot of anxiety. And I lived alone from a young age. So a lot of things sort of pile up. And by the time you've added up the years of touring and everything you've done and becoming an adult, but while you're on the road, I came home and right before going on these tours, I was just like, shit, I need a break. I need to stop for a second. And when I stopped, it's something I like to put in the music as opposed to, I suppose, a conversation, but I hit a pretty dark place. I mean, it's as dark as I suppose we get as humans. And I really had to stop and look at a lot of things. It's as if everything had been in slow motion. And then when I got home, life just picked up and I looked around and I was like, damn, I've been this person on tour, connecting this certain way with the music I've had. And now I'm home. And it almost felt like I had sort of fast forward in time and needed to catch up with myself. So for a while, I was just not in a good headspace. And so we took a step back, and it's not something I've ever really talked about in terms of, you know, why we pulled out, but we pulled out of touring Japan and we pulled out of the Social Distortion tour in the US and kind of ended up having to go on a journey where I was like, all right, I was feeling pretty fucked up and there was a lot of stuff going through my head and life was happening. At that point, I lost a lot of people. I lost some friends.
So it was like affecting your relationships as well.
No, I mean, people died.
Oh, people died.
So
Literally. Wow.
yeah, no,
Okay.
just a lot was happening. And I had
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
So, well, no, I mean life in general. Just it just there was a lot going on.
Okay.
So it's sort of hard to sum up in a way, which is why I've sort of spread it out and allowed myself to be honest on this record and just sort of tackle certain issues I haven't looked at for a while. But what it certainly did was it really made me stop for a second and go, okay, you know, when you suffer from anything, you have a stomach ache, you have anxiety, or whatever the hell it is, you have a bad foot, you go see a doctor and you go, hey doctor, my knee hurts. And your doctor goes, okay, cool, that'll be $400. And now I'm going to send you to a specialist. And I'm like, can't I just skip the 9,000 steps of what's going on? And I remember getting to a point where I was like, I couldn't quite work out what was going on with myself. Some of it was physical, some of it was emotional. But I found that no one person could tell you how the fuck to be a human being. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling this and I'm doing that and this is going on in my life, but somehow it was always, well, let's refer you to this person and let's refer you to that person and and I was just like, this is mind-boggling. So I got home, I took a year off, I wrote some jingles and movie soundtracks and different things sort of towards the end of that year. I'm glossing over the fact that it was a brutal fucking year. But at the end of that, I sort of just started to gently make music again and do things, and I'd taken a break. But what I found was that I'd started to write this record and I started looking at my songs in a bit of a different way. When I first started writing music, it was honest. It was everything that was on my mind and it was completely conversational. Most of my album was freestyled because I was just like, all right, this is what I think, this is what I feel. And then I realized that I'd sort of gotten into this thing, which I think a lot of creatives do, is you sit down and you write a song, or you sit down and you paint a painting, and suddenly your head gets involved where you're like, this verse will rhyme and these are the things I'm going to say. And it stopped being as conversational for me and it didn't feel right. And so for a while I was like, why doesn't this feel like me? And I play it to some friends and they're like, you know what? People would love it and I would get wonderful reactions and, you know, you'd hear nice things from people like, this song is a hit, this is great, whatever it is. But something was still missing. And so, to tangent for a little second, I've been in a lot of meetings in the music industry where you'll sit there and people, you know, just with business meetings at this point, and they might be talking about one artist or another. And they're saying, this artist writes hits, they write great melodies, but they don't know who they are. So we're going to put them in with like 30 different writers over the course of the next month so they figure it out. And I've always been a bit baffled by that explanation. I mean, you can stumble into a partnership and that can work. But also, fuck being in a room with 30 different people. Do you know what I mean? Like, go be with yourself. Go connect. Go do an improv class. Go acting, I think, is an incredible art form. Because when you think about any creative endeavor, painting, designing, making a movie, acting, creating music, you have to connect. So a good actor worth his salt doesn't walk in on set one day and go, listen, man, I can't act today because I'm just not feeling shitty and the person in the part's feeling shitty. If you're an actor, you connect, you get in, and as happy as you're feeling, you get to that place, which makes you relate to that part and you connect. And I think that's something that we can gloss over really easily in creative fields and get caught up with the cerebral aspect of, here is a song and here's the commerce piece, and how do we piece these two together? And we start thinking instead of trusting in our hearts and in our guts that who we are is enough. What we have to say will relate to others and others will be able to relate. We're humans, we all feel the same shit. And fast forward to now, what I'm putting out on my record is a lot more honest. I've taken the time to really want to sit down and talk about things I didn't want to talk about before, address things I didn't want to address. And it's very
That's
freeing.
so brave. Could you at least, on a high level, maybe just tell us what a few of those subjects are of things that you were holding back that now you're like, let's liberate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason I brought up that song is because it's out and I kind of like to retain some of the mystery of some of the things that are to
fair
come.
enough. Okay.
But, you know, addressing some things I did that I might not be proud of, some things that, losing people as well in certain ways, and just coming to terms with certain things as well, which I'd rather put in the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think in life, not to say I wouldn't talk about it on a podcast, but I think I'm quite a private person in general. So I find that I'm not always the person who'll be like, okay, and on social media, this is all the stuff I'm feeling and this is all the stuff I'm thinking. I like to focus on putting it in the music. But in the end of the day, the most important thing is, how do you feel about what you're doing? And are you really doing something that coincides with who you be and who you see yourself being in life? So that is essentially what I kind of had to come round to. And the only way to do that for me was to be honest in the music.
Okay.
And go, okay, well, I'm going to say this shit, and I'm just going to have to be cool with it. And I found it kind of exhilarating and very freeing to just put that out there. We can curate so much in life, but everyone has the same deck of cards. You know, we've all got 52 cards to play from. We can all play the, let me curate my social media. We can all play the, let me curate my hair, let me curate my skin, let me curate. The one thing you cannot curate really is your soul and how you make people feel when you show up in a certain state. There's only so much you can kind of hide.
So question for you, you've been more honest in your music as of late, and you're sharing things that you've been wanting to express and share for a while. I'm curious to know both how that's felt, putting that into your music, sharing it out into the world, and then what the response has been from people.
Some of the stuff I'm most excited to share hasn't come out yet, but it's about to.
Okay.
I think writing this stuff can feel scary because you're just thinking, I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to admit to being a complete cunt, but right? Well, there we go.
That's honest.
Yeah, but for me, there's sort of no other way to do it. And I think that's sort of how I felt as a teenager as well. And that's the writing I love the most is when that, and that's also how we relate. When we second guess things, I think we tend to miss the mark because we're all on some level looking for connection. So it feels scary. It felt scary to write, but it feels exhilarating to want to put out now. And I think it does because I feel like I want to connect. I like artists that question themselves. I like artists that are raw and real and honest. And so if I'm putting out what I like, I'm okay with that. And I hope that other people on planet Earth can chill to it, like it. I mean, I remember as a teenager starting and I was like, everybody likes some weird shit out here. So if there are 3 people who like my stuff, I'm good with it. But there's bound to be 3 people out of 6 billion at the time who'd be into it. Now there's 7 billion, so we're kind of on point. It's a billion more people who might accidentally stumble into my stuff. So anywho, I'm excited about it. I'm very, very excited about it. It feels relieving. And I think I was always honest in my music. I think I just got to a point of not knowing what that felt like anymore because I had lost that sense of connection with myself. And we go through, again, not feeling good enough. And really, if you break that down, if you take an example of why a writer might not feel good enough, it's like, okay, why do you not feel good enough? Oh, because my songs suck at the moment. I wrote a shit song. Okay. I mean, thankfully, I've gotten to a place where I don't go there. But it'll happen for sure. And there are times where you'll be like, oh, why did I write that song? But if someone's sort of looking at that and going, okay, so if I was to ask myself the question, I'd be like, have you written a good song before? And I'd be like, yes. Okay, so you have proof that you can write a good song. Yeah. But I'm not writing them now. Okay, but you have proof that you can. So
that takes a lot of mindfulness because in the moment, we see what we think oftentimes. So to be able to have that knowledge of being like, okay, right now I'm not feeling that hot about myself. And I have this huge body of work that I've continuously proved myself. So I don't have to get lost in this negative thought right now.
Yeah. And I think we can do that across the board too. A lot of the time if it's a product that you pull out there and you're like, oh, I've made a product and it's crap and no one likes it, or this particular one. Okay, but have you put something out before that people like? Or if you're like, I had a shit day at work, or like this job isn't good. Okay, have you had a job that you've liked? There's always different frames of references to readjust and show ourselves that for every time we want to get into self-loathing, for any time we want to get into I'm not good enough, there's always something to look at, which is, hang on a sec, you kind of forgot that you are good enough, and you kind of forgot that all of this stuff, you can always find something to come back to. It just takes looking at it and being open enough with yourself to acknowledge that.
Another question for you, because you've talked a lot about the value of realness and rawness in music, and you've also spoken to the importance of your privacy. And I can certainly relate to that. I've got this podcast called Are You Being Real? And I've had many episodes where I aim to share myself and to let people in, for the sake of our shared humanity. Because like exactly what you said before is like, we're all dealing with the same shit.
Yeah.
Right? We can hide it and isolate ourselves and cut ourselves off from the connection, the love and the support that comes from like letting ourselves be seen. But at the same time, like privacy is a real thing. So I'm curious to know where your line is between allowing yourself to be just like wide open and seen and experienced raw emotion in your music. And then where's the line in terms of the types of things that are just for you?
I think I'm still figuring it out.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I think I'm still figuring it out in the sense that I am exceedingly private. But at the same time, I do go to the complete other extreme with music. And so I think it's really just been a choice of how do I want to live my life in a way, and what is important for me to put out there and what isn't. Sometimes there are things that I write and I put them out there because it's cathartic for me, but also because I feel like people might be able to relate, and let's put it out there. And as a song, I feel good about it. Sometimes I'll write songs and they're cathartic, but I might look at them and go, that's a bit self-indulgent, in the sense that it's cathartic for you, but it's not really something that might add value to someone else right now. And maybe that's not my place to judge. But I think so long as I'm adding value, or feel like I'm adding value and giving to people by sharing an experience, I think it should be out there. And I think for anything that's myself, I don't really do things for the attention. In a way, I'd rather be able to do things and be successful, but live the life I choose to live. Freedom is important to me, and being able to walk around and be free and do what I want to do and have my life and not be hassled and bothered is something that I enjoy and I treasure. So I think it's something I'm just going to have to work out as I go along. But like I said, so long as I feel like something's bringing value, I think it's important to share. When I wrote music as a teenager, I started writing music because I was in a really bad place. I was 14 and had really bad anxiety. And the only thing that made me feel better was listening to music. And I could suddenly breathe better. And I remember at the time just going, holy shit, this is the cure to everything. Like I need to show the whole world that music can do this. Because again, I'm 14 thinking like no one's ever seen
I love it. And you went into punk.
Oh yeah, because it was punk rock that had made me the adrenaline, the like major chords, the kind of release.
Some of the anger.
Oh my God, just that and gangster rap. There was an adrenaline and a realness to it. Yeah. And I was learning different expressions, different thoughts. People were being fucking real. And when I listened to the radio and it was you love me, I love you, like it felt more placid and just this sort of, limp version of what the real truth could be. And so I was really drawn to punk rock. And I remember just picking up a guitar and thrashing away, and it felt good. And so everything became feeling based for me. So if I felt a certain way listening to a song and I picked up my guitar, whatever I wrote had to feel the way that song had made me feel. And that's how I wrote that first album. And again, I was a kid, but it was sort of all coming out, and I let it be very true and I let it be very raw in that sense. But from that point onwards, it was very, very simple for me. I just wanted to make music because I was like, yo, people need to know. And then as I grew up, we're touring, and then it's which songs are you going to put on your album? And then, at the time your publisher's involved, and they're like, we think this song, and all this conversation, and then we're touring a bunch. And that's sort of what brought me full circle. When I came home was going, hold up a sec. Like I'm writing stuff, but it's not as true, and it doesn't feel the same way it felt when I first did it years ago. Yeah. So now I've come full circle, and it does feel that way again.
Now but you're doing solo work, right?
Now I'm doing
it's
solo
more
work.
Lyric based.
Yeah, well, lyric based. It's just I've created the room instead of relying on a wall of guitars to get the edge across. I've created space, and the guitar lines are much more intricate. The balance is a lot more delicate, and it's it's not that I'm being more honest now than I was then as a teenager. There's a gap in the middle where I sort of, it's like, what is there even to be honest about? And then when you really connect, you go, oh yeah, okay, let's talk about this stuff. So now the brush strokes are different. There's more shading to it. There's more detail to the stories. There's more depth to it. So in writing this new stuff, what's cool is I've gone back to feeling the way I felt then, which is someone out there might be feeling the same thing. And if I share it, hopefully someone's going to go, fuck yeah, I felt that way too. And you know what? Cool. All right, I'm listening to this song because that's going to get me through this moment. Why? Because I listen to music that does that for me. And it's not a deliberate thing. I just think if I'm honest, we're all human. We all feel the same thing. Someone is bound to relate. So don't think about it. Don't overthink it. Just be real, be conversational, put it out there. If people have it and it adds value, great. And so that's sort of the thing for me is I feel like I'd like to help. That's something I would like to do. And it's something I've pursued since I was younger. And when I'm doing that, I feel good. And it's something I'd like to just continue doing. So with regards to my music, again, I suppose value is really where it comes down to.
I just love the pure raw emotion. Seeing you up on stage, I felt you. Like I really, really felt you. So I think that's such a beautiful thing in a world where I think people are scared to express feeling. So,
or even, honestly, even feel feeling.
Well, that too.
I mean, and I notice it too.
Yeah. Well, with our phones, we instantly pick them up to escape the feelings. Obviously, alcohol and drugs, and I mean, there's just so many different avoidant mechanisms that we have to run away from our feelings. I want to ask you some kind of colorful questions. So this is one of my favorite parts of the interviews is at the end here, just asking 4 or 5 colorful questions so we can continue to get to know you better. So my question for you, first one, is what do you think the greatest lesson is that you're supposed to learn here in this lifetime?
Oh, bollocks. I think it would be to transcend the just 3D box and physical limitations, social limitations that get imposed on us, and just to be who I truly am to the fullest extent that I can, and encourage others to do the same.
Hell yeah.
I guess. I hope.
Yeah. There's a lyric in one of your new songs that I was fascinated by, and I wanted to just ask you what the lyric means, and it's caught in the thrill of the chase.
Oh, I see what you're relating to, boy.
So I'm curious to know what that means to you.
Well, the song itself is called Make Me Feel. And it goes, I won't even walk out, caught here. Still, man, I can't stand the taste. I ain't even on ya, caught here. Caught in the thrill of the chase, 'cause you make me feel. Sometimes I'm giving your listeners a bit more context. It would say, I won't even walk out. I'm caught here. Still, man, I can't stand the taste. So I'm not prepared to walk out. And I'm kind of stuck here. And I can't stand the taste. I ain't even on you. Like, I'm not that into you. But I'm caught here. I'm caught in the thrill of the chase because you make me feel.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's basically expressing the idea that you're making me feel where I hadn't felt before and where no one had really made me feel. But at the same time, I'm not that into it. There's just something about you that's making me feel. And that's enough. And I'm admitting to a weakness in that point in saying, like, look, it's not that great. And it goes back to the lyric of, I want to hold you, but not for the rest of my life. At that point, it was enough that you made me feel. And that I was wanting to feel and I needed to feel at that point. So much so that I was almost putting myself aside in that moment for the sake of that feeling. And I think, again, we do that sometimes, whether we're out and about, whether it's one night stand or not. You're not, giving yourself the full extent to what you truly desire or what you truly want, but you're letting yourself do it because it feels good in that moment or you want it in that moment. And that's caught in the thrill of the chase is really just saying, like, yeah, again, for anyone who enjoys the chase or gets a thrill out of the chase, it's feeling something. Feeling a chase, whatever you get from that became more important than the actual, I guess, the truth of two people below it all.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Pleasure.
This is a deeper question.
Yeah.
What is the most fulfilling compliment someone can give you?
I think it's relating to my lyrics and liking my lyrics. I think it's relating to them. I think the biggest compliment I can get, or at least I feel I've received, is that someone's heard the lyrics and related and it's helped them through something. That's certainly the most fulfilling for me.
Love that. And then the last question for this little round here of the interview: if people really, really knew you, what would they know about you?
I've done a very good job of hiding this for a long, long time. Don't make me put it out there. Well, I think I'm showing more of that recently, I guess. It's hard to say. If I was to choose something, I would probably say I'm a bit of a softie. I'm only going to give you a bit of a softie. Hard as fuck, punk rock, fuck you. But no, I think, I care a lot. I definitely, in terms of being a musician, I think sensitivity is one of your strengths, and you just, learn to channel it. But I'm sensitive, and I also, I'm a big fat goofball, really.
Love it.
Give me a Labrador and, I've just been squeezing that little face and whatever it is. I'm just, I'm a big fat goofball in a lot of ways.
Cool. Thank you for letting us in.
Cool.
Beautiful on the inside and out.
It's very kind.
So Tatiana, to wrap up this episode here, what can we do to support you?
That's very kind of you. Thank you. Well, I'm very excited that some of my solo stuff has started coming out. So I'd say feel free to come find me online. Check me out on Spotify, on iTunes, on Apple Music. There's a bunch of new music. So there was the rock band Tat, and then there's now the solo stuff, which sounds completely different. It's a bit more beat-based, simple, and melodic, which I'm super excited about. So check it out. Feel free to listen to it, to blast it, to loop it, to share it with your friends. And come say hi on Instagram. Let me know you've checked out the podcast. Thank you for sticking around and letting me be your guest. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
I hope the many tangents have kept you at least on the path. But yeah, feel free to spread the word. And if you like my music and if you feel so inclined to post about it and share this interview and share the music, I'd love that.
Yeah, definitely check it out. As you'd expect, it's fiery and filled with raw, real emotion.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, check it out. Any final closing words? That maybe something that you wanted to say when you were driving over here that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
This Ted Turner quote that's been in my head for a sec, which was, for a few years now, but it sort of pops up every now and again, which is make your purpose or your goal something that you can't achieve in life. And that way you kind of never stop and you've always got something to strive towards. And I love that because I guess his dad had always wanted a farm and a sailboat. And I guess he got his ranch and his sailboat. And then he was like, I've got nowhere else to go from here. So I suppose back on the subject of helping people, back on the subject of sort of a bigger, wider goal, something that you can always kind of keep doing. I think that's sort of what helped me really come full circle again. And, we sort of go, what's your why? And all these questions, which are like, what is your why? Well, ultimately, what makes you matter? And I think if we come full circle to asking ourselves, what makes me matter? I think at that point, we can really start to redirect our lives and really look at where we're going. And we might think nothing makes us matter. And we might think, I really like sneakers. That doesn't fucking matter. Who knows? You could be the biggest sneaker collector on planet Earth. You could be an aficionado of sneakers. You could have a talk show about sneakers. Whatever the hell it is, just find out what in your soul really makes you matter. And then look at your day to day and see how you can fulfill that every day and see if it changes your path, because it's a scary fucking thing. But that's just been on my mind, I suppose, to share that.
Cool. I like
Thanks,
that.
Man.
Awesome. Cool. The one and only Tatiana DeMaria. Excited for the rest of your singles to come out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Me
Let
too.
me know when the next show is. Let's rock.
All right.
I'm coming on tour.
Awesome. Do it up.